Thanks, Kevin, for the nice introduction. If you don't know who I am, I don't know where you've been. My name is Amanda. I've been here, like Kevin said, I've been a member of NPM since I was 10. I mean, my first convention was in 1999 when we hosted. I was in one of the children's choirs. I was in Ron Duran's at Assumption, who I knew affectionately as Dr. D. But I have been a part of NPM, as you know, for the longest time, and now I am honored to be a staff member for NPM National now. It was official last week, so woo. For some of you who got the job posting for St. Mary of the Mountain Prince of Peace, I think before I have the presentation about NPM 2.0, I just kind of want to explain what that is, because I had a lot of people approaching me before and asking. So I will be working for NPM National part-time from Pittsburgh. So while NPM is based in Silver Spring, I will be working off-site in Pittsburgh, which means that I will no longer be able to be full-time at St. Mary of the Mountain Prince of Peace. So I will still be working at St. Mary of the Mountain Prince of Peace as director, but part-time. I know it's weird, it's unique, but we've crafted hopefully a job description for organist and choir director, so the person who's coming in will have a very truly full-time job where they will get point of first refusal for all weddings and funerals at St. Mary of the Mountain Prince of Peace, which you know, St. Mary of the Mount, there are a lot of them. Typically it's about 75 a year, and then about 100 and 125 funerals in the grouping. With that being said, you wouldn't be straddled with all of them, you just get right of first refusal, and I will be there to help. So we did advertise for the full-time job. If you're interested, you can decide if working with me is a good or bad thing, but other than that, it's a great position. We have great priests in the diocese, but especially in my grouping, I'm very lucky. The pastor, Father Michael Stumpf, is wonderful and a huge supporter of music. So that's my little spiel. There's my little plug. But I'll still be at St. Mary's, but I'll also be working for NPM. So Bela just helped out by passing out just some notes. These are not anything I really expect you to read through during the presentation. They are officially from NPM's website. If you want more copies, you can go on and get them yourself, but they're just mostly for your reference. To be honest, I will not be using a lot of the wording in these, but I thought you'd have them as they are the official NPM documents that are on the website. But please feel free during all of this, because there is a lot tonight, to put any notes, questions, concerns on the front page, and then you can always ask me. And if you don't want to ask me and want to go straight to the top, it's very easy. There is an email address set up right now, board@npm.org. That's the direct line to the board of directors. We received a lot of emails ever since NPM 2.0 launched in July at the National Convention, and if you have any questions tonight, you can always either ask me or just ask straight to the Board of Directors. So tonight, we're talking about NPM 2.0, okay? What the heck does NPM 2.0 mean, okay? Other than the fact that it sounds like an AOL upgrade that we had in 1994. Tonight, this presentation is going to focus on what it is. Whether you attended the convention or not, you will get information that's new for you tonight. And then this hopefully will give you a chance to ask yourself, how does this impact me? Where do I fit in? How am I a part of this? Okay, so setting the stage. Of course, as we know, the association has been around for 40 plus years, and a lot of things have changed since the association started. Just a couple things that come to mind. The idea of church has changed since NPM was started 40 years ago. From church mergers to decline in attendance across the country in the Catholic Church to the rise of non-denominational churches, the Catholic Church has seen major cultural shifts since NPM started 40 years ago. The idea of staffing a church has changed since 40 years ago. Many musicians are now part-time. We are a great example of many musicians who are full-time but straddling multiple churches, which has a whole different layer of complexity for budgeting and financial undertaking. And so for this reason, church mergers have reduced the number of jobs available and the number of full-time jobs available, and of course, reduced the funding that could be available for pastoral musicians to attend conventions and continue to do continuing ed formation like NPM. Not to mention, the way that we've learned has changed. Just look at the last 5 or 10 years. Technology is among us. It's kind of obvious. I'm reading from an iPad right now. We're using lots of gadgets. The way we learn has changed. In the past 5 to 10 years, there has been a strong rise in online certification programs for continuing education in almost any career. One of the ways that I have strengthened my toolbox, if you will, is I have actually taken classes in marketing. This past year, I took an online certification class from Cornell University in digital marketing, which is what I use for NPM on the daily. So there are now different ways online to connect from universities across the country. So the way we learn has changed. But also, because of the reduction of staff in churches, many people, like I said, don't have money to attend national conventions annually. So with all of these things in mind, things have changed in the past 40 years, but especially the last 10. 2 years ago, in the convention in Cincinnati, Steve Petronak, the president, shared a vision to help guide the course of NPM through some of these changes. It included a new website, a plan to eliminate deficit spending, and to keep NPM National on a much stronger foothold financially. Since then, NPM National has found success in improved fundraising and development, and they've been able to operate at virtually break even. However, NPM didn't expect to experience such a sharp decline in membership, as we've lost 500 members in 2 years. This was not the anticipated outcome of the changes that NPM has made over the past 2 years. The truth is, the changes NPM has made were the first steps in implementing a much larger vision that was needed for the sustainability of the organization. They weren't enough, however, to build a solid future just yet. So, to effectively serve its members in the church, NPM National needs, and local, needs more deeper, significant change. Enter NPM 2.0. So, whether you were at the convention or not, we're going to cover some of the basic bare bones information that was covered at the convention. There were 5 main focus areas in NPM 2.0. They are chapters, programming, communication, governance, and membership. Tonight we're going to focus mostly on the first 2, chapters and programming, because they affect us on a local level a lot. And also, chapters and programming were two of the main areas that have received the most feedback since the convention. Okay, so chapters and programming we will focus on the most tonight. So chapters, let's talk specifics. So currently NPM has over 70 active chapters. But the main concern is that we do not have strong ties with diocesan leaders across the country. We do not have there are some dioceses that don't even have a relationship with NPM. This is a main concern for NPM 2.0. But this is also a tremendous opportunity to expand NPM's reach. So opportunities for programming and learning on a diocesan level are on the rise. It's one of the options, or it's one of the opportunities that the national staff has been working on the most, especially this summer since the convention. One of the pieces of feedback from the convention shaped some of the preliminary plans to offer more incentives for diocesan offices of worship in music, which is currently being finalized in the national office right now. So we're trying to focus on expanding our reach to a much more national level, gaining relationships with offices of worship in different dioceses. The other concern that we have is that there really is an inconsistent relationship between NPM nationally and its chapters. So we come from a very unique place because NPM Pittsburgh is one of the strongest chapters in NPM. And I'm not just saying that. We have a strong membership base, we have strong programming, we have consistent programming. And that, to be honest, isn't across the board the case. There are a lot of chapters that in one state in the United States, there's one chapter for the entire state. And people will have to drive 60 plus miles to go to a chapter meeting. It's a very different experience. Not to mention, too, that there are a lot of chapters that charge local dues. Well, should we all charge local dues? Kevin, do we currently get any local dues?
No, but it's on the drawing board.
Exactly, yeah. So this is something that unfortunately is not consistent from national to local. There are some chapters, let's use, I want to say Raleigh, for example. Raleigh was a good example this year, where Raleigh does charge local dues. And there are some chapters where you can be a part of the local chapter, but not the national. I mean, this is inconsistent. And there are some chapters in the United States that don't feel that they have support for strong programming. So this is an area that NPM 2.0 really hopes to focus on. So NPM 2.0 seeks to connect chapter and national membership, have a chapter in every diocese, big goal, standardize chapter structure and governance across the board, and give chapter leaders a much greater role in NPM national governance. So as you can tell too, this is just the first section talking about chapters. All of this is what we seek to do, what we hope to do. You will hear me say a couple times tonight that if you have any ideas or feedback for this, please, this is a member-driven project that's happening right now. We are a member-driven association. You'll also hear me say that a couple times tonight. So any questions, you can ask me or email the board directly if you have ideas for this. Okay, number 2, programming. So as I already mentioned, the way we learn has drastically changed in the past 10 years. If we're targeting a goal to be more financially sustainable and gain new members, especially, dare I say, members from a younger generation, it behooves us to look at what are the smartest and best options for programming. So here's the breakdown. NPM's current business model has existed for 10 years, and it greatly depends on annual conventions. Bless you. Does anyone remember when we used to have regional conventions? About a decade ago, right? Yeah, we used to have regional and national conventions. But in a way, those regional conventions were mini conventions, if you will, right? Had the same feel of a national convention. It was smaller. Yeah, it was much more regional. When we converted 10 years ago to an annual convention every year, it created a catch-22. While it's great for community building and opportunities, the revenue generated through an annual convention is now the largest line item on NPM's income statement. So in many ways, this has handcuffed NPM. The leadership cannot choose whether a convention serves its mission in any given year. In the current financial model, an annual convention is a must, simply because NPM financially depends on it. It's just not a sustainable financial model anymore. So what is the future for the National Convention? This was a big topic at the convention. There were people that came home and said, we're never having another convention. This was it. Hope you had a good one. That's not the case at all. So to be clear, national conventions are not being eliminated entirely. Conversely, actually, we are not returning to the model of miniature conventions in the regional conventions. That's not something that's in the plans. NPM 2.0 will focus on 2 different types of programming: in-person programming and online programming. Here's what we know so far. Here are the in-person programmings planning for this year and following. So next year, at 2020, we're scheduled for a national convention in Louisville. In 2021, we're scheduled for a national convention in New Orleans. Start getting the beads. Start saving up. We're going to New Orleans. Now in 2022, this is what was confusing at the convention. There will be no national convention in 2022, but instead there will be something called skill builder events that I'll talk about a little bit more in depth later, that will be located across the United States. I'll talk about these skill builder events a little bit later, but locations are to be determined. So to be clear, 2020 national, 2021 national, 2022 skill builder events across the country that I'll talk about in a little bit later. And that's not saying that there won't be a national convention in 2023. National conventions will still be a part of NPM's identity, they just won't be every year anymore. Let's talk about online programming. So currently we have 2 very successful programs. We have the Essentials of Catholic Liturgy, which is through LTP, and we have the Cantor Workshop Series, which is also through LTP. These are great resources. If you don't know anything about them, go to NPM's website because they're wonderful, wonderful programming for your cantors and for yourself and for maybe also budding pastoral musicians as well. We also have new members-only content for NPM members, and we're adding to it regularly. From the, of course, we've all used the planning calendar probably. Has anyone, raise your hand if you've used the planning calendar. There we go, good, good. If you don't know, there's a planning calendar for all NPM members where it assembles, I think, every major hymnal that is used every year and gives you planning options for music a year in advance. So the planning calendar, yes.
Trouble finding it at first.
Yep.
When
you went to the members, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yes, and so.
Did you find it now?
I found it,
Mm-hmm.
but and happy that I did, but I don't know if anyone else had that bump.
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a little clunky, I gotta be honest. But it's there, you just gotta find it.
Yeah.
Okay, so NPM 2.0 seeks to offer both national and regional skills training and formation opportunities that span all areas of the United States. I'm going to emphasize it again, all areas of the U.S. We're going to talk a little bit about membership in a minute, and that's a really important shift because NPM is the strongest from the Midwest to the East. And so by pushing west, we have to look a little bit different at what we're going to do for formation if we want to start to expand that reach. 3, communication. So like the shift to online learning that I mentioned before, the way we consume content and news has drastically changed. I could say over the past 4 years or 5 years, much less the past 10 years. So NPM will evaluate all communication through the lens of, again, serving its mission. NPM will use contemporary forms of communication as vehicles for engaging members and potential members. An example of this is social media. Social media, while is in some ways kind of like the devil you know versus the devil you don't know, it's also a wonderful platform to engage with potential NPM membership. It's a great way to get the name of NPM out with what I call brand awareness. Okay, so not only that, we're continuing to work on updating the NPM website and, of course, Pastoral Music Magazine. Has anyone looked at Pastoral Music Magazine in the past year or so? Anyone read that regularly? Yeah. It got a really nice fresh coat of paint last year. And I have to say, Kathy Feelong is now the editor for Pastoral Music Magazine. She lives up in Erie, PA. And if you have not checked out Pastoral Music, you really, really should. Kathy's doing a wonderful job to create different articles and content that spans the interests and education and knowledge of a multitude of different types of pastoral musicians. So please check out the magazine, it's wonderful. Okay, governance. This is where it gets a little bit heavy-handed. Okay, this is where we start to kind of grab a drink of water. Okay, we're going into governance. So there's a lot of information for governance that is in your packets. I'm going to water it down and simplify it just to a couple of very basic things. NPM 2.0 calls for the following vision of governance as its guiding force. To its core, NPM remains a nonprofit organization led and governed by its members and always connected with the USCCB. That is the core of what we do. But like I mentioned before, we are a member-driven association. This is the focus that I hope you see not only throughout this presentation, but in the next year in all of the communications you get with NPM National. While this fact hasn't changed really, we are trying to emphasize and focus on it as it is how we make change during this critical point in NPM's history. So simply put, NPM 2.0's vision is that NPM is Catholic, nonprofit, diverse, and led by our members. That is what we want to see going forward. Now, membership. Here are some of the numbers, and I'll warn you, they're a little bleak. Our membership represents 20% of the total Catholic churches in the United States. 20%. There are 12,000 parishes in the U.S. that have no pastoral musician involved with NPM right now. Our members are heavily concentrated in the places where the church has been well established in the past. But we know that the church is growing by leaps and bounds in the South, the West, and the Southwest. As you can see here, I don't know if you can see from back there, so of course we see a very strong presence here, of course with NPM membership, as well as Texas, Florida, and California, but in this area, there's not as much of a strong presence for membership. So NPM 2.0 seeks to offer tiered levels of membership that provides a home for all pastoral musicians on all levels experience and leadership. Now, this is one of the options, or one of the items with NPM 2.0 that actually hasn't fully been fleshed out yet, because we want to make sure that, like I mentioned before, we get feedback from you in the association about things like this. We want to make sure that you have a home with NPM. There were a lot of people that left the convention feeling that they didn't belong in this membership, but didn't belong in NPM 2.0. But that's not the case at all. The idea here, however, is to start reflecting different training and formation for areas and, dare I say, cultures that have different areas and ways of learning. So for example, music from the Southwest, Spanish-speaking music. There are a lot of people in Hispanic cultures that don't read music. So there has to be formation on how to learn from rote. So the membership will experience growing fluctuations in how we learn and what we teach and what we're offering. But more than anything, NPM 2.0 wants people to realize that they have a home. So what has happened since the convention? So ever since the convention happened, NPM National received, oh my gosh, I would say hundreds of pieces of feedback from people in person, to social media, to emails, lots of emails. I'm proud to say that we have taken a lot of the feedback from people from the convention and afterwards and have already started to hit the ground running with it. And I'm also excited to say that some of the information that I'm about to share is fresh off the press. I literally got off the phone with NPM's president, Steve Petronak, at about 4:45. And some of this is that new. Some of this news is that new. So you guys are really privy to some of the first information that will be released to the membership soon. So number one, this is brand new. NPM is developing a Choral Directors Institute with a release in either 2020 or 2021. This is what they're calling a multi-topic institute. Now, this will have a similar format to the One Call Institute and the Guitar and Ensemble Institute. Now, who's familiar with the One Call Institute? Whoa, okay. So the One Call Institute is an institute that replaced David Haas's Music Ministry Alive, that used to be a weekly retreat for young, budding pastoral musicians. One Call Institute is led by Matt Reichert and Zach Stachowski, and they lead it in Minnesota. And it's a week-long opportunity for young college and high school age pastoral musicians to learn from the best and learn from some of the best pastoral musicians that are in the United States right now, from John N. Gotti to Tony Alonso to Craig Colson. I mean, just a complete different list of people come every year and give these students, these young people, the opportunity to learn in different tracks. So if they're a cantor, they do the cantor track. If they're a drummer, they do the drummer track. I mean, it's completely different for every student. So that is an institute that started 2 years ago with NPM. It is an NPM sanctioned event. The Guitar and Ensemble Institute. Who's familiar with Guitar and Ensemble Institute? Okay, cool. We got 2 more on that one. Great. So the Guitar and Ensemble Institute is an institute that is usually offered a week or 2 after the National Convention in Ohio. It's a very small retreat setting where even Steve, the president, takes off his, dress coat and just comes in jeans. And it's really an opportunity for guitarists and ensemble players to learn ensembleship. And so it's really a completely different feeling from a national convention. It's a lot of small group learning, mostly for instrumentalists, with a lot of jam sessions in between. So people like Jaime Cortez are huge parts of the Guitar and Ensemble Institute. So in that way, the Choral Directors Institute will again have different tracks for choral directors, but again be solely for choral directors. So this is, again, the type of programming with the One Call Institute, the Guitar and Ensemble Institute, and now this, we're starting to show a little bit more effort in formation in certain tracks that are also separate from the National Convention itself. So again, we're hoping to have that done in 2020, if not 2021. You good, Kevin? Okay. Next, we're dedicated to creating skill builder events. So I mentioned these before, right? Skill builder events. These will take place nationally, but they are not mini conventions. I think I meant to say they'll take place regionally. Sorry. They're meant to take place regionally, but they will be across the country. But these will not have the flavor of an old regional convention where they are mini conventions. They will focus on different areas, things like a chant skill builder or a contemporary composer skill builder. They will be a little bit more focused on a certain topic. They will range from 1 to 3 days, and they will be at different points across the country. So these are still very much in flux. They're still being developed. They will begin on the West Coast in 2021. Again, working on the West Coast as much as possible, starting to put our efforts there as many, many people in the association have asked to do. And then across the US, they will take place in 2022, like I mentioned, to replace the national convention for that year only. Okay, so this is actually even something that isn't fully official or announced yet to the membership, but Steve said I could say it. There will be professional leadership coming on board for NPM 2.0. So as of this week, NPM National and the Board of Directors and the staff is actually bringing someone on board to lead us as effectively as possible through NPM 2.0. This person has expertise in leading nonprofits through major changes like what we're seeing right now. So this should be finalized by the end of the week. They will be consulting the board of directors as well as the governance task force that has been working on making all of these decisions after receiving all of the association's feedback. So again, this is also going to be coming so that everything is taken in the best way. Okay, now this is a smaller version, but this is also something that we're going to be doing. In the communications department, I mentioned that communications is one of the 5 main areas. We will be bringing new opportunities for members and potential members. So I'll say it again, we're a member-driven association, so some of the things we're going to be doing this fall will encourage you to invite other people to do the same. One of the things that we are spearheading is something that we're calling St. Cecilia Day. So St. Cecilia Day, it's November 22nd. I forgot to check this before I wrote this. It's November 22nd, right? Yes. Thank you. I should have Googled it. I just wanted to make sure before. Well, it's too late now. So, but it is St. Cecilia Day. So this will be an association-wide day that we will celebrate on the Feast of St. Cecilia so that we can pray and interact with one another across the country. What we will be doing is sending out a printable resource for everyone to use that will be in their email inboxes well in advance so that everyone who wants to participate on St. Cecilia Day can spend some time on their own or in a group to reflect on some sacred scripture, have some small prayer journal prompts, and reflect and have an opportunity to pray together or alone using this guided prayer printable resource. And we're making this resource so that it can be sent to non-members too. So this can be sent to choir members, this can be sent to cantors, this can be sent to your colleague down the street who doesn't belong to NPM. This is a great way for you to engage with them and say, hey, you know, in 2 weeks it's the Feast of St. Cecilia here. Here's a nice resource. Just thought you'd want to pass it along to you. It's a way to, again, hopefully engage with non-members and possibly bring more members into the association. So, at this point, we get to shape what's next. While all of this may seem daunting, it's a very exciting time for the association, but more specifically, the membership of NPM. We as members have the chance to shape what comes next, but especially we as NPM Pittsburgh have a very strong voice at this time. I'm on the national staff now. We, again, are looked across the country as a very strong chapter. This is a really great opportunity where if you see an idea or you want to step forward and help with something like this, or you want to complain about something, that's great. Any of that is great right now because you really do have a voice. And I will say too, in the midst of On Mission for the Church Alive, isn't it nice to have a thriving local chapter to rely on? Or is it just me? No. It's not just me? Okay. I really, really appreciate all of you right now, especially this year. I describe to Steve the Pittsburgh chapter of NPM as being the best support group I know right now. because when I go to these events, when I go to these chapter meetings, I feel related to. I feel understood in a time where things are very difficult for us. So I want us to continue to thrive. I want NPM to continue to strengthen on a national level, to give us more resources on a local level. Can you imagine in 2 or 3 years if we had 80 people at this event and that was like a low number for our event? Wouldn't that be great? That's the type of thing I would love to see. And so this is a great opportunity for us right now. So before I open it up, again, oh yeah, I said, if you have any feedback, again, board@npm.org, or just complain to me. Now the last thing is, this is just kind of an anecdote. We had a lot of people ask, why was it called NPM 2.0? Okay? We had a lot of people say that this language was antiquated. Okay? That it sounded like Windows 95 or AOL 4.0. You know, when we used to get those CDs and it would take 8 hours to upload the newest AOL to our computers. Yes. Okay, so people said, why NPM 2.0? We chose the name NPM 2.0 because it showed that we're making a distinct change in our organization, in its health, future, and sustainability. The future will look different from the past. But the changes we make in NPM 2.0 will not be the be-all final product for the future either. There will be an NPM 3.0 and a 4.0 and so on and so forth. But in order for NPM to be a sustainable, strong model for the church, we need to change. Just like the face of the church has changed in the past 40 plus years since NPM's inception. But we are the current face of the church, and we as NPM members have the chance to shape the next chapter of what our local and national association will become. Amen. So.